All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Becca Blazak, and I'm the Director of Corporate Partnerships at Tech Equity Collaborative. And I'm so excited to be hosting this virtual Ignite event today. This is one of my favorite formats in order to hear about new ideas and hear from speakers and see how folks get creative when they want to share new and exciting things. And this is also the first time that we have run this virtually. We've done this in the past a couple of times in person, but given that this is our first time doing this online, bear with us. We're going to be figuring out the tweaks and things as we go. So a quick overview of how this works for those of you that may be unfamiliar. Ignite talks are 5-minute long talks where the speakers have 20 slides that auto advance every 15 seconds. We'll be hearing from 6 different speakers today, all sharing ideas about life after COVID-19. We've been so focused on immediate response, as we should be. But we at Tech Equity have also been thinking a lot about what happens after this and how we sort of take a hard look at some of the gaps that we're seeing really come up as a result of the pandemic, and think about long-term solutions that will make our communities healthier, our economy stronger, and ultimately safeguard us from future crises. And that's really what we wanted to try and pull out from speakers who are having ideas about things to put into motion right now. And so that's really what we're focusing on in this event today. So we'll hear from our 6 speakers, and there will be time for questions at the end. So if you have a question, drop it in the Q&A function that you should see at the bottom of your screen. There should be a little icon that says Q&A. My colleague Marion will be managing Q&A, so drop your questions in there about talks as they go, and make sure that you let Marion know who your question is for so that they can facilitate that conversation for us at the end. My colleague Herman is also managing our chat function, so he'll be dropping links in there that are relevant as we move along. This is also the place to let us know if you're experiencing any technical issues. So feel free to drop anything in the chat and Herman can help you out if you're having any problems. So we're gonna try something before we start here. We're going to do a poll. We're trying this function out for the first time, to be honest. But I'd like to understand a little bit more about how familiar our attendees are with Ignite Talks. So I'm going to launch this poll question in here. And everybody take a few seconds and answer it. We want to understand a little how familiar you all are. So if this is your first time, if you're familiar, or if you are just a die-hard Ignite fan, you're super pumped, maybe you've given a talk before. So I'm seeing a lot of answers come in. Thanks everybody for being really prompt here. So I'll give this just a few more seconds. And I'm hoping you can all see these results here. Looks like this is a first time for most folks that are seeing an Ignite talk, which is really exciting. I think y'all are in for a treat. All right, so before we jump to our first speaker, I want to share a little bit more about Tech Equity and who we are as an organization for those of you that might be unfamiliar or if this is your first time attending a Tech Equity event. So Tech Equity launched about 3 years ago, really in response to a changing face in the Bay Area. We were seeing this economic boom from tech that was driving a lot of wealth and opportunity for those that were in the tech sector. But at the same time, we were also seeing rapid displacement and increasing inequality in our neighborhoods, and really seeing those two things at odds with each other. And we knew that there were a lot of people in the tech sector that wanted to contribute to solutions in our communities, both tech workers and tech companies, but often folks didn't really know where to start. And so that's why we built Tech Equity. We built it to be a place for tech workers and tech companies to learn more about pressing issues facing the Bay and participate in solutions that will contribute to a more equitable and inclusive economy. And we are incredibly optimistic about the tech industry's potential to drive broad-based growth that's accessible to everyone. But in order to achieve that, we have to show up. So at Tech Equity, we focus our work on 2 main issue areas that we see as critical to building more equity in our communities. The first is housing and affordability. Our housing platform focuses on both anti-displacement and pro-development. If you know a little bit about the housing ecosystem in the Bay, you know that these are often two camps that are divided and pitted against each other, but we think it's really critical to address both anti-displacement and pro-development in our housing solutions in order to more sustainably solve our housing crisis. Our second area is workforce and labor. Our workforce and labor agenda focuses on labor protections, social support programs, and workforce development. We work in three main ways. You've probably guessed that education is a big one of them, given that we're hosting an event today. We really want to make sure that the folks in our network understand the critical civic issues where they live and work. And so in order to help understand those issues and deepen knowledge within the tech sector, we host a regular event series where we dig into our issue areas. We host a book club. We've moved everything over to virtual for the time being, and we have quite a few webinars that we've hosted since moving over to work from home, and we'll be continuing to do so as things develop. The second way we work is to activate our network on a policy advocacy agenda that results in a more inclusive economy. We run advocacy campaigns that drive change in both public policy and corporate policy, and we also run civic tech projects that help implement changes that come through our policies to make sure that people understand their rights. And finally, the third way that we work is through connection. We think it's really important for folks to connect to the places that they live and the people who live there on a really personal level to feel invested in solutions in our future. So that's a quick and dirty on tech equity. We're gonna move on to our first speaker here. So our first speaker is Nikki Adamson, and if you want to tweet about Nikki's talk while she's giving it, here's her Twitter handle. Nikki is going to be sharing about the future of flexible work. So Nikki, I'm going to hit play in just a second here, and you're going to go. So
thanks, Becca.
All right, righty, here we go. Play.
Hey everyone, my name is Nikki. I'm going to talk a little bit today about flexibility from the lens of working parents, something I've been pretty focused on for about 3.5 years since getting pregnant with my daughter. And since that time, I've left the tech job, didn't feel sustainable to me, worked at Milk Stork, talked about employee benefits and really how companies can help employees on the flexibility side. And now I run my own firm called Hustle Hunters. So today I want to talk a little bit about how things that used to be nice to have, these like extra bonuses and perks and flexibility, which have now become a forcing function, they're really needed. So this is what kind of a snapshot of what today's American children look like. You can see that, our families have shifted from previous generations, about 1/4 of the population living with one parent, most with two, and 44% of those couples are dual full-time earners. So there's a little bit of a challenge when you think of being a working parent, specifically with the lens here of being in the tech space in the Bay Area, which is kind of the lens that I bring here. The main one being, there's a lot of impossible logistics. This is pre-COVID. School starts at 8:10, and on the latest days dismisses at 2:20. This is down the street from me at Malcolm X. So I don't know many jobs that let you get off at 2 to go pick up your kids, but it makes it so that things are pretty challenging for those parents who are both in the workforce. So there's limited options here. It's hard to find solutions. Aftercares tend to be booked, can be costly. I pay about $20,000 a year for my one child to go to daycare there. And I think it's important to think of the consequences. As we've changed our family structure away from having, the one mom staying home wearing her apron all day, dad goes off to work, has the 2 beautiful children. We've moved away from that structure. And you can see here that a lot of families do have those dual earners. So you can see that 44% stat comes from the bottom right of this table, with a lot of women in this workforce either being not employed or working part-time to support those dads who are out earning. So those women in those heterosexual couples, we're finding that the women are doing a lot of that invisible labor. So 60% of the childcare duties, sometimes that's 10 hours a week, sometimes that's like 17 hours a week if you have smaller kids. And we're finding as a result of that, 43% of women are leaving the workforce. So that's me, I'm included in that statistic. And a great study I love by Northwestern says that in the absence of flexible work arrangements, another likely outcome is that one spouse will temporarily have to quit work. And they're predicting that that's probably going to be the wife here. So that's something I kind of wanted to highlight a little bit, that I'm anticipating that we're going to have pretty solid drop off of women in the workforce as a result of this, and kind of that like forcing function of childcare being the main thing that's going to lead to that. So let's talk a little bit about the history here. So there's been a strong movement of flexibility. Companies are actually like listening and really trying to offer part-time work and contract work and benefits and leave. Many of them are costly, but specifically because of COVID, the pressure is really amped up there. So we're going to see a huge decline in childcare spots. We're testing remote work, as you can see by everyone here. You'll get a snapshot into all the presenters' homes today. But it's, of course, not a perfect solution because we all have our kids running around at the same time. I wanted to call out specifically single parents during this crisis, that 21% of all children are in pretty severe risk of living below the poverty line as a result of their parents not being able to balance their child care that doesn't exist right now in their work. So thinking of solutions, based on the research I've done, there's kind of two pieces here. One is short term, like let's just figure out how to get through this crisis. But looking more long term, there's the opportunity for this forcing function to actually make a pretty serious impact on what flexibility looks like in the workforce, whether that's paid family leave, more flexible work arrangements. We've all tested remote work now. Let's try it, when we go back to work and instead are in staggered shifts, people working Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday in the office. And the other big elephant in the room here is that offices are going to open well before schools are going to open in all likelihood. So it's obviously not a problem that's going away and there's no real solution there. So I think it's a forcing function that we're going to figure this out together. So thanks everyone for listening. I appreciate your time, and send me a note if you ever want to talk a little bit more about this. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Nikki. Succinct, to the point. Now you all know what an Ignite talk is supposed to look like. And Nikki highlighted a lot of really interesting things in there, right? There are a lot of really interesting considerations that I think companies are going to have to be thinking about as we move away from this, and our company structure, the way that we knew it, could very well be changing in a way that makes things much more accessible for more of our workforce. And that is a really exciting potential solution that's coming up. So our next speaker is Karen Underwood, and Karen is going to be sharing with us more about mental health and some of the research that she's done around some of our most vulnerable neighbors here in the Bay. So Karen, I'm going to have you go ahead and turn on your video.
It says I can't. My host has stopped it.
Oh no, okay.
I can be the hidden.
Herman, can you help with the video here? It doesn't look like I'm able to do anything. Oh, there we go. All right, Karen, are you ready?
I'm ready. Oops. Let's do it.
Here we go. You're on.
Okay, at home and at risk, I'm here to give you a picture into health equity at the Tech Equity Collaborative by talking about the health of the Bay's most vulnerable. So why me? I'm a health technologist and I care deeply about health disparities facing low-income Americans. I worked in public health, I've worked at health tech startups, and I also graduated a year ago from business school at Stanford. More importantly, since that time, I founded Coach Me Health. We're a tech nonprofit that provides remote health coaching to low-income Americans, and we work here in the Bay Area right now with low-income patients with type 2 diabetes. Health coaching is, I won't go into it, but it's all about helping people make behavior change. And to change behavior, we really have to tap into why. So a lot of my Ignite talk will be about why today. And to start, I want to talk about why we're here. We're here because we want to share the reality that we're seeing during COVID and start more conversations about how to address. We're running 2 pilots with 60 patients right now. And for us, most vulnerable means the people we're serving who have limited English capacity, are undocumented, and are facing chronic disease, which leads us right into that minorities are more likely to acquire COVID. And why is this? There's a lot of talk in the media. A first one is that people are working in essential jobs. They're making hard choices about paying rent and taking work. and really doing what they can to get through this time. So this is from one of our patients who is working at a senior center to clean. The deeper why is that low-income Americans face a 10-year gap in life expectancy than wealthy Americans, and a majority of our low-income Americans are people of color. And that gap isn't just about access to healthcare or where you live. A lot of it's driven by health behaviors. So what are the things that you do on a daily basis that really dictate if you're going to live to see your grandchildren grow up? So why is this true if we have a bazillion, that's a real word, health apps? Why are things getting worse even before COVID? And why is COVID exacerbating this? So this is another quote from a patient or a coach that shared this with me yesterday. Had a call with one of my patients who patiently waits for my call. She shared that since we started talking, she's been eating better and taking care of her health. At Coach Me, we believe that people change behavior. That's why we're working on scaling health coaching, which is about using connection to drive behavior change. And COVID is leaving people and the patients we're seeing alone and at home and in more need than ever before. Why is this? A big thing is that the clinics that our patients normally go to are currently closed. They're only doing 40% of their normal visit volume for emergency visits only. So people with diabetes who are taking medication don't have the same access to care. And what that means for patients is that they're more isolated than ever. They feel that isolation and separation and needing that connection. In addition, some patients are working, but many aren't, and many aren't receiving the stimulus check if you're undocumented. So with a lack of opportunities, it's not a new normal yet. This is still really, really real for our patient population. Seeing patients in need has spurred us at Coach Me to connect them to more social determinants resources and coach directly more around mental health needs, which is an emerging and growing coaching connection. In addition, Medicaid, the population we serve, was previously serving 70 million patients. Medicaid as an insurance program is going to grow, and there's more and more who will need free clinics as they drop out of health insurance. So we're all making the best of our circumstances here, everyone on this call, including our patients. And the resilience that patients are showing, I do my best every day to make the best of what we have, is why we believe in the need for health equity more now than ever. And so we want to bring this to more patients using tech to help scale it and put this into motion to help more clinics. Would love to talk to anyone who'd be interested to chat more, and questions welcome. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. Lots of really good information in there. And I think it really highlights also, or rings true in some of the work that we've done at Tech Equity. We have this responsible contracting initiative that we've been working on this year that we started thinking about, particularly service workers at tech companies, the types of working conditions that those folks have access to, the type of pay they have access to, and that was really critical when COVID hit. Because so many people were reliant on, that income, but it meant also going into work every day and working to keep those tech campuses running. And when we don't go into our tech campuses, what does that mean for all of those workers? And it was really amazing to see how many tech companies stepped up and made the commitment to continue to pay many of their service workers in this pandemic. So that's some, if anyone's interested in learning more about that, definitely reach out to Karen at Coach Me Health, and feel free to reach out to us at Tech Equity to learn more about our responsible contracting initiative. So next up, we're going to hear from Kelly McBride. Kelly comes to us from Code for America, and she's going to be sharing about a tool that her team has been working on. So Kelly, take it away.
Hey guys. All right. So, hey everybody, my name is Kelly McBride. I'm a product manager at Code for America, and I'm working with a team to build GetMyRefund. So I'm going to tell you guys about this digital service that helps people access real human support to file their taxes. So first, a little bit about Code for America. We're a nonprofit in San Francisco that launched in 2009, and we partner with governments across the country to strengthen the delivery of public services, and a lot of that's through user-centered research and design and technology. So GetMyRefund actually started with researching workforce development and looking into how we might help people find and keep living wage jobs. But we actually found that what people really needed was flexible cash to have a strong foundation first. So this is what Naja experienced. We met her in Colorado. She had a job, but was fired on her first day because a small fine she wasn't able to pay showed up on her background check. So she was getting support from the workforce, but only cash could have solved this problem. And the Earned Income Tax Credit is a really effective cash support that already exists. It delivered $61 billion to people in 2009 and is really effective at lifting families out of poverty. But the EITC often goes unclaimed. You can see here there's a pretty big gap, and a lot of low-income households are missing out on what we estimate to be more than $10 billion. And that's actually double what is left on the table for unclaimed SNAP benefits. So that means that people are eligible for their Earned Income Tax Credit, but they're not accessing it due to certain barriers. And a lot of those barriers stem because in order to claim the EITC, you have to file your taxes. And tax filing, as you probably know, can be really scary. It's confusing. It brings up reminders of traumatic life events, and just letting someone know that they're eligible for the EITC doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go claim it, because you actually need, a lot of folks need help filing their taxes. And VITA is a service that already exists that provides that service. VITA is a volunteer income tax assistance program, and they're IRS certified volunteers who help low-income folks file their taxes for free. And that's why we built GetMyRefund. We wanted to help VITA deliver their services online to help more people in the gap claim the EITC, because this is VITA's specialty. We just needed to make them more available to those who need it most, and help those in the gap who haven't filed. So this is our key user needs that we try to reach. We want it to be free and trustworthy. It's available whenever, wherever, on a phone or a desktop computer or a tablet. And it really gives that human touch where someone can actually work with someone and ask questions to understand their tax situation. So earlier this year, we set out to pilot GetMyRefund for the tax season 2020. We wanted to help 10,000 people prepare 5,000 returns, see if the model would work with 4 partners, and see if we could reach people in the gap and focus on learning. But of course, as you guys know, COVID happened, and the world looks a little different. VITA sites that were operating in this very physical model are now closed, and the tax season is extended. People need their stimulus checks, and GetMyRefund is one of the only ways to access VITA services online now. So we had to rapidly expand. We're trying to support as many sites as we can, so we've onboarded a bunch of partners, and we're working to onboard more. And more people are coming to us because they need their stimulus check and they need to file their taxes. And people need cash now. Filing your taxes is now a big way to claim both the EITC, but also your stimulus check. And more people are coming to us who need trustworthy help and people who are generally stressed out. This is a really stressful time. People are overwhelmed, as you can see. Here's one of our clients, a quote from them. And it's not always clear how we can help, but we're hearing from users that just having a personal person to ask questions from and get your taxes filed is a huge relief when people are super overwhelmed. And then there's also the product side of scaling a new product that we're working through, that you're scaling quickly, that presents both challenges and opportunities, lots of policy opportunities too, as things are changing with COVID, but there's also some challenges in scaling something new up. So throughout this time, we just want to make sure that we're keeping our clients at the center and uplifting stories, along with metrics that can ultimately impact policy changes that need to happen with the safety net and with tax filing. So we need your help. You can get involved by either joining Code for America, you can join a local brigade, those are regional volunteer groups, or you can directly support GetMyRefund by joining a Slack channel, the CFA VITA folks channel on our Slack. And you can actually help support our partners directly. So we're elevating client stories, highlighting barriers, and increasing access to online tax filing that's free and easy. And you can get involved through that Slack channel and through the channels I mentioned to help people get flexible cash.
Amazing. Thanks, Kelly. I will also plug Code for America. I used to work there, and it's a really amazing organization. So I definitely encourage folks to get involved with their brigade or check out open roles if you're looking. It's been around for quite a few years now, and has been doing amazing work for a really long time. One of the things I'll also add too that I love about civic tech and civic tech products like the one that Kelly just talked us through is that there's so much room for improvement in our government technology. At the local level, at the state level, at the federal level, you name it, there's so much that can be fixed, and the impact that it has is massive. So even if you're just sort of interested in starting to dip your toe in the water on civic tech projects, I think it's really, really rewarding work. So definitely check out Code for America. We also run a few civic tech projects, like I mentioned, at Tech Equity. We've helped local small businesses that are part of the Oakland Indie Alliance launch a new business. We're building a tool to hopefully help pass a policy this year to support housing solutions. We built a tool called tenantprotections.org last year, all with the help of volunteers that are part of the Tech Equity Network. So if there are tech projects and or something you're interested in, get in touch to learn more. Okay, so our next speaker is Mira Stern, and Mira is going to be sharing with us around investing in local talent. And in order to get in touch with them, I've posted their Instagram handle here. That's the best way to touch base with Mira. She's more active on Instagram than on Twitter. So Mira, take it away.
Thank you. So I want y'all to imagine a place, right, where community sustainability was rampant, where free breakfast programs for children originated, where people reclaimed their stolen land and their kids were taught their cultural practices by communities. And I want you to imagine a time where the first openly queer NFL coaches and elected officials were stepping into bold bravery for the nation to see. And I want you to try and imagine a feeling in which community resilience was possible, where wealth gaps were shrinking, where diversity was truly celebrated, not just tolerated. And this is not just our imagination, right? This is the reality of the gold here. These pieces sewn together make up the sometimes hidden richness of the Bay Area. And it's a patchwork that brings together innovation, health, sustainability. And though my ancestors came as settlers, this is a land that I'm incredibly fortunate to call home. San Francisco, where I was born, my father was born, my grandmother was born. And what it's meant for us to honor the wealth of the Bay is to serve its movements and serve its people. And I think those of us who are from here and who have served here have this really deep patchwork sewed into our DNA. And yet there are particular periods of history where this patchwork was unraveled. When gold was discovered in the 1840s, there was a rush onto this earth wealth, right? But no incentive for white folks to honor whose land they were on. In 70 years, 90% of Native people in what we now call California were murdered. 90% in 70 years. Settlers really wanted what was here and not who was here. And with grief, as a new techie, I'm reminded of these same orientations. I look at my past company's practices where we claim to be moving forward while leaving so many locals behind. Our company, like most other tech companies in the Bay, was comprised of 1% of San Franciscans. And no Indigenous, no Black, or no Latinx folks were included in that 1%. So companies have arrived, right? They've rushed to create their own wealth, their own wellness, without tapping into one of the most precious resources of the Bay. It's people who embody the values of innovation, impact, community, inclusivity. In 70 years, we saw a genocide that annihilated 90% of Indigenous folks. And in 7 years of a tech boom, I really wonder, what will it look like here? We've already lost 20% of Black San Francisco and 30% of the Latinx mission in the last 15 years. 40% of Black people have been displaced from Oakland in the last 2 decades. The wealth accumulation of the gold rush, that is what built the modern day Bay that we enjoy, right? But it was literally made on the backs of dead Indigenous people. in the tech gold rush, are we going to replicate those same patterns? I think if we look at ways to remedy this, we have to prioritize the people that built the Bay Area, whose labor, whose heart, whose creativity created the elements about this land that we love the most. The diverse Bay who have been here for generations, right? Who come from all areas of the planet and have celebrated our unique differences hella loud and hella proud. Let's look at a case study real quick, okay? So Company A, for example, they spend $300,000 a year on recruitment. They have an 18% turnover rate, and they have a 1% local workforce. Company B, on the other hand, they spend $50,000 on recruitment. They have a 2% turnover rate, and they have 60% locals, which automatically means it's bringing equitable numbers of underrepresented working class folks to the helm. So here we are, right? We're with another opportunity to tap into the hidden wealth of the Bay Area and not just build a workforce with less turnover or to spend less money on recruitment and retention efforts, right? But to also build companies that have strong employee cultures of inclusion, connection, that center equity, that naturally bring an incredibly diverse array of views and opinions, and that will build bridges between the tech world and the people who have called this land home, right? Who better to run your social impact vision? Who better to run your employee experience than local folks? I think Corona, for a lot of folks, has kind of exposed the underlying issues in our society. And I think this is time to use as a gift, if we're able, to look at what roots we still have time to repair, what connections we can build, what we can restore access back to. It's really time, I think, for us to see what gold we can sustainably gather from the terrain and truly make a social impact in our local communities.
Wow, thanks, Mira. That was really powerful and a lot to digest in there. I hope folks are taking a minute to sit with that and sit with those statistics. And I think what Mira really illustrated here is the opportunity that we have to sort of take a hard look at the things that are not working and be really honest with ourselves about why they aren't working, what's been happening, and how we move forward, and what change really looks like for us and investing in that change. So I want to take a second here to do another poll just to see how people are doing. Now that we've had a couple of talks about different types of work opportunities and investing in local talent and civic tech projects, how are folks feeling about getting involved in advocacy campaigns and civic tech projects that will hopefully drive more equitable solutions here in the Bay? I'm feeling a little like this is a little risky here because I'm hoping that most people are feeling excited. So give everybody a few more seconds to respond here. Looks like we're about 45% have voted. So if everyone wants to drop in their responses a little bit more, I'm feeling optimistic. This is looking good. I can see your results in real time. I'll share them with you in a second here. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share what we've got. So I'm excited. So for the 21 people that voted, about 76% of you said count me in. I'm excited. And that is really exciting for us to see at Tech Equity. I'm sure it's exciting for all of our speakers to see, obviously we have a lot that we need to work on. For those of you that are still not sure that this is for you, that's okay. There are other ways for you to get involved. There's other ways for you to learn more. I hope that you continue to sort of think through the different ways that you might want to support solutions here in the Bay. And if you're still looking to get more information, we're hosting an Intro to Tech Equity webinar in June. So that's another way to sort of dip your toe in the pool here and explore a little bit more about what might be interesting to you. I also want to encourage folks to drop questions in the Q&A. I'm not seeing too much activity in there as we go. So just a reminder, if you have questions that pop up for our speakers, make sure that you let us know what your question is and who your question is for so that we can facilitate that conversation after we hear from our last two speakers. So like I said, 2 more to go. Our next speaker is Julia Wunsch, and Julia comes to us from Spin, which is one of the e-scooter companies that's here in the Bay. And Julia is going to be chatting with us about mobility in the time of COVID. So Julia, you're on.
Thank you. So hey everyone, my name is Julia Wunsch and I'm on the community partnerships team at Spin, electric scooter sharing. And Spin is providing transportation for essential trips during this hectic time. And I'll be discussing our programs in further detail today. I'd like to start with an overview of who Spin is. So at Spin, we aim to be a strong partner to the cities that we operate in. We always follow the rules, we never launch without permission, and we are focused on long-term goals. Spin is extremely unique in how we view our cities, communities, and campus partnerships, and we believe that being a good partner means meeting shared transportation goals. This approach enables micromobility to become a true solution in cities and on campuses. So to execute successfully on these partnerships, members of the government, community, and campus partnerships teams work closely with our operations team to ensure we exceed requirements mandated by cities. And this pandemic presents a very unique challenge to transportation. Mass transit currently is no longer the safest option for folks given the opportunity for the virus to spread. And on top of that, not everyone owns a personal vehicle, highlighting the need for alternative modes. So while most of us stay home, essential workers still need to move. And as a single person mode of transport, micromobility really does have the opportunity to serve many trip needs, which is why we're continuing to serve our communities during this time. So prior to COVID-19, we operated in over 70 cities and 25 universities. But due to the crisis, we paused operations in many markets and remained open in 8 cities, places where cities deemed our service essential. We are continuing to resume operations by providing transportation for essential workers and ensuring spins are accessible to those who need them. And we are now operating in 15 markets where we feel we can make the most impact. Cities recognize the value of micromobility, which is why some deemed it as essential during the pandemic. And micromobility is incredibly important now more than ever because we can easily adapt deployments to complement changes in demand. Scooters are also unique in that they allow for physical distancing, and dockless scooters allow for usage flexibility. And our ability to move charging stations based on demand promotes a more dynamic nature, which enables our fleets to operate longer. To keep our riders and teams healthy, our staff wear proper PPE and disinfect scooters each time one is picked up. And Spin also operates with W-2 employees, which really makes it easier to implement CDC guidelines to keep everyone safe. So to show our support for healthcare professionals during this time, we launched Spin's Everyday Heroes program, which is providing all healthcare professionals, including nurses, doctors, and janitorial staff with free 30-minute rides in our active markets. And in addition to providing free rides, we are also shipping free helmets to healthcare facilities and are partnering with hospitals such as UCSF and Kaiser to deploy strategically on or near their campuses. Signing up for the Everyday Heroes program should only take a few minutes and requires a photo of a government-issued ID and facility ID. And users can register on our website, which is spin.app/COVID-19. So after comparing current trip trends to those prior to the pandemic, we found that people are riding for longer distances. We've also seen a median increase by 26%, which is huge for us, suggesting that scooters are being used as a primary means of transportation. The above maps show a change in riders' travel patterns in San Francisco. So prior to shelter in place, riders were using scooters to commute to Market Street, and now the purpose of these trips has largely shifted to essential services. So to get feedback on our program, Spin's marketing team released a survey to our users. We've received numerous positive responses which solidified the importance of our work with colleagues and with city partners alike. And a nurse from Johns Hopkins sent us a touching note stating how helpful it has been to take spins home from work and highlighted that scooters enable her to maintain a safe physical distance from others, which really reinforced the importance of the program. And this pandemic is an unprecedented challenge. We are exploring partnerships to meet our riders' needs during this time, and we are including collaborating with food delivery services to meet increased demand and leasing scooters on a monthly basis, among other things in our plans. So one last thing, if you have any ideas for how to utilize micromobility in your community, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Even if it's a market that Spin isn't currently operating in, we'd love to hear your ideas. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Always interesting to think about mobility and transit, no matter what time it is, but I think scooters are definitely a super interesting solution right now. So definitely reach out to Julia and to Spin if you have questions or thoughts about micromobility. Our final speaker is David Fraser, and he's going to be talking with us about permaculture and tech. So David.
Hello.
Go ahead and take it away.
Okie dokie. So permaculture. Permaculture is a design system that mimics nature, and it's an empathically based holistic approach that meets as many outputs of a system to as many inputs of a system as possible as would be found in a forest. The picture, you will not see it as trash by the end of this deck right here. That's kind of my point. So what is different about it and how can it help? Everything goes through ethics and principles, which is much needed today, especially in industry and tech. Whole system design, no one element is ignored. It values diversity fundamentally. And all this other stuff, earth care, people care, fair share are the ethics. I practice this a bunch. And the reason we have this, because we all need the earth, it's logical, and then people care, and then fair share, because without the earth, we have no people or fair share to even worry about. We'd all be dead. Next is the principle wheel for design on top of the ethics, which is derived from lessons that you find in nature. It ensures that we always have checks and balances when we are creating design to make sure we are following nature's principles and designs and empathy-based designs. Where's the next one at? Observe and interact. First one, just observe without a judgment and be curious is the first part of the principle wheel. A great example of this is nonviolent communication, much harder than you think. And the bottom of the slides, by the way, are going to be 3 patterns. You'll see one that's social on the left, in the middle is a nature pattern, and on the right is a tech pattern, catch and store energy. Anything that's already in there, a tech example would be RAM, or people just walking by, they're already doing it anyway. That is foot traffic, foot energy that could be utilized for something. What do we got? Obtain yield. That is where you always want to have something for the labor that you actually put in. We're not working just to work, right? We actually want results of the things that we are doing. And the bottom is symmetry, by the way, life-work balance. Life is first, always. Work always comes second. And then RAID 1 is a mirror / symmetry concept as well for tech. And then next is self-regulate and accept feedback. Nature has no judgment. Things just happen, and it responds to feedback without any inclination or ideas or beliefs or anything. It can take a scenario and form a pattern out of it. Use and value renewables. What is continuously entering the system or is already there that requires zero effort or little effort? Human energy and emotion is renewable. That is a resource. Please keep that in mind. Produce no waste. How is something not being utilized that you see as useless but can still be helpful in other arenas or in ways you didn't think of? A forest uses everything. Think of someone who you think wastes time. They have energy. They have time. It's just, where's the energy go? The energy's still there. What do we got? Go to the next one. This is my first talk, by the way. Thank y'all for bearing with me. Design from pattern to detail. When taking this non-judgmental bigger picture approach, patterns show themselves. How can they be used for the design? Integrate rather than segregate. This concept we call 1 + 1 = 2 and a bit. It's never just the single sum. Use small, slow solutions. Forests don't grow overnight. They're built over sometimes millennia. This is also a motivator when you start a thing slow, like I'll do 1 or 2 small things in the morning just to get my day started, and it gets me rolling for the rest of the day. Use and value diversity. Fundamentally, pictured is the 3 sisters, Native American farming technique of using squash, corn, and peas together, which all work together and benefit from each other's presence and attributes, much like with people of different cultures. What do we got next? Use edges, value the marginal. In permaculture, we have something called zones, which is like a way of separating, differentiating access points. Zone 5, which is like wild forest or edge of your property, can still be useful for your system and should not be ignored. This is a social thing as well. Who is marginal, who is on the edge? Creatively use and respond to change. Things are always going to change. Your design is going to have to change and respond to the feedback loops that come to it. How do you do that? The wheel does not end. You can basically just like restart and be like, okay, we did the design, now let's go back. A practice we do is inputs and outputs of a chicken. The obvious, of course, is if you're not vegan like me, water, food, protection, stuff like that. Less obvious would be space, grit, stones, kitchen scraps, companionship, exercise, play, all that. Outputs, eggs, meat, alarm, all that stuff, right? Sorry, I was thinking about outputs for the last one. Less obvious, cleared land, companionship, sound, like alarm system, right? Feathers, pest control, bone and blood meal, and other things to help your garden. What else we got? What I observe, social design is hindered by bottlenecks in tech. Diversity is not a priority from what I've seen. I personally have tried to get my company to do something about it. I've been ignored for the past year and a half. A lot of people want to take leads who are in privilege, but they need to be more support is what I see. Defer to a doctor if you see someone bleeding. I do not feel like techies have all the answers. Use permaculture to revamp open source culture, which can be very sexist or racist. Include people affected by the machinations, direct feedback loops to law and lawmakers, and voting is essential. How can technologists help with that in this remote COVID day?
Awesome. You just plowed through so much there, and that was so good. I feel like you kind of encompassed a little bit of everybody else's talk and sort of touched on the high level systems thinking of each one of those. So this was such a great way to conclude our talks. Thank you, David. Lots of thought-provoking things in there, and I hope everybody is feeling excited. So before we get to questions and end, I know we've got about 10 minutes left. So we're gonna do one final poll question to see how folks are feeling about attending a future Ignite event. So now that you've seen 6 awesome Ignite talks, let us know how you're feeling. Would you come back? And if you would definitely come back, would you even maybe sign up to give a talk? It's okay if it's not for you also. It's not for everyone. But we'd love to just hear a little bit more about how folks are feeling. So it looks like almost 50% of you have voted. If you're able to, I hope everyone's able to see the poll. We're almost there, about 65%. Give folks another couple seconds here. All right, so I hope you can all see the results. Almost everyone voted in this one, and looks like most of you would come back. A couple of you, it's not for you. That's okay. Thank you so much for joining us and trying it out with us. And I'm excited to see that a few of you are like, hard yeah, I'm into this. Definitely gonna do this again, and you would even give a talk, which is great. So Marion has been managing our questions. And so like I said, so I think it's 12:52. I'm gonna let everybody go on time, I promise. So Marion, if you wanna jump in and share a couple questions that you have gotten from our attendees, that would be great.
Great. Hi, y'all. Thank you all to the amazing panelists. That's been such a fun round of talks to watch and bear witness to. Cool. So Chris P is asking Nikki, what sources do you rely on for your compelling stats? I find it very important to keep up with those types in my work. Nikki, do you want to take it?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, Chris, there's lots of different data that's now starting to come out in this space. I just posted 3 links into the chat. A lot of the statistics that I found most compelling are less like anecdotal stories and more like deep research from Northwestern. So you can check that out here. Harvard Business Review has also been doing a pretty good job of sharing statistics. So I included 1 link in there, and they reference a few other papers.
Great, thank you. All right, we have a question from Mira from Megan. The example between retention and recruitment costs for company A and company B were quite compelling. Can you share the source for that data? Oh, Mira.
On mute.
Great.
Hi. Definitely. I can send them to you, or I can just reveal it right now. The first was a company I was working at before the layoffs, which is Thumbtack, and the second is Muni. So it's not a tech company, but it's reflective of the different practices that folks can use as, you know, their pedagogy and their hiring.
I'll just quickly add, this is a different kind of example, but if folks are familiar with the tech company Checker, they've been doing some really incredible work around hiring folks that have been formerly incarcerated into full-time technical roles within the company. About 7% of their entire workforce, I believe now, is made up of folks that were formerly incarcerated, and they're seeing really, really incredible outcomes from that sector of their workforce in terms of retention, productivity. And so while it's not a specifically local talent, I think it sort of speaks to that overall diversity conversation of what it means to really invest in building a more diverse and inclusive workforce and company, and the potential results that we can see as an outcome.
Excellent. Great. We have a question from Richard, which is, I think, a general question for any of the panelists, so feel free to jump in. Do panelists think they're presenting to investors, people searching for a job, or people who have no need for money but are searching for social, I don't know if contribution tasks? So I'm not sure what the last part is, but if anyone wants to take that, who is your audience for these talks, and how are you wanting to spread the word about what you're sharing?
I'm gonna just I'm gonna call on some people. I think Mira should answer this question. I think Julia should answer this question, and I think Kelly should answer this question really quickly.
Great question. I think everyone has a responsibility to be thinking about, local hiring, and particularly equity around race and class and the Bay Area's demographics when it comes to tech, whether that's the government, whether that's tech companies, startups, old, huge companies like Google. And particularly within the companies, I think social impact and recruitment teams need to be centering policies and approaches around local hiring, both shifting the narratives around what local or untrained talent might look like, and also creating more strategic and structured pipelines to be prioritizing local Black and Brown representation in tech.
Great, I'll go next. So I think from a mobility perspective, mobility is something that really impacts all of us on a daily basis, regardless of class or income or where you live. And obviously, where you live and those factors can really contribute to the accessibility that you have to different opportunities. And so I think one of the things that really sets Spin apart from other micromobility companies is this really strong investment that we have in the communities that we operate in. And a focus that we have in terms of engaging with different neighborhood associations, holding events with community engagement, nonprofits and organizations, and working alongside cities to be a long-lasting partner. Specifically, this presentation was also to raise awareness about our Everyday Heroes program, which is a program obviously seeking to give free rides to healthcare workers. But I think in general, micromobility companies can sometimes get a bad rep for showing up overnight and for being something that's really only available to tech workers. And so at Spin, we have a really strong focus on disputing that claim and making sure that we're providing transportation services equitably to communities all over the US. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Julia. Kelly, if you can give us maybe like a quick 30-second answer, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can do a super quick answer. I think a lot of what you guys said resonated with me. I as going through my presentation and hearing the others, I noticed a lot of connections between how this situation is affecting all of us differently, but also there are a lot of similar themes about safety net programs and policies needed. So I think on our end, it was really just raising awareness about what we're doing, and then there are ways to get involved for folks who are interested to pitch in for their communities.
Awesome. Marian, I'm going to steal it back from you since we are 1 minute away. I don't want to try and keep us on time. So I would be remiss if I didn't make sure I highlighted opportunities for everybody who's still on the call to get engaged with tech equity. Like I said, we have an intro webinar on June 12th, so you can sign up for that on our website. We're doing some COVID-19 relief volunteer opportunities, and there's more information about that on our website. I mentioned some civic tech projects. We're recruiting for a couple of those right now. And then the other thing that you can do if like some of this is just like not in your wheelhouse for the moment, but you like the work that we're doing, is become a member. This is one of the best ways to support our work and helps us really represent the tech voice when we advocate for big policy change in places like our local government or up in the state capitol. Also, if you work for a tech company and you think tech equities work is interesting, I will do a webinar and do a brown bag for all of your employees and friends that you work with. So let me know if that's interesting to you. It is 1 o'clock on the dot. We'll send a follow-up email with all the information from our speakers. We're going to share the slides, and I'll make sure I include all the information that I just said really quickly. Thanks everybody for calling in and for joining us today. This was a lot of fun, and I think we'll be doing this again, so keep your eye out for future events. Thanks, and have a great rest of your afternoon. Bye, everyone.